The year was 2347. Humanity had spread across the stars quietly, building colonies on 17 worlds in a small corner of the Orion Arm. They had found planets with breathable air, worlds with oceans and forests, moons rich with minerals. But in all their exploration, they had never found aliens. Many people believed they were alone in the universe. They were wrong. Captain Daniel Price stood on the bridge of his cargo vessel, the Bright Horizon. He was a middle-aged man with gray hair at his temples and lines on his face from 30 years of space travel. His ship carried medical supplies and farming equipment to the outer colonies. It was boring work, but it paid well and kept him far from the crowded cities of Earth. "Captain, we have a problem," said his navigator, a young woman named Amy Collins. Daniel walked over to her station. The navigation display showed their position near the Vega system. They had taken a shortcut through an uncharted region to save fuel. It was a decision Daniel now regretted. "What kind of problem?" he asked. Amy pointed at the screen. There were 12 objects on the display, moving toward them in formation. They were not asteroids. They were not comets. They were ships. "I have no idea what those are," Amy said. Her voice was calm, but Daniel could see fear in her eyes. He opened a channel to his crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We have unknown contacts approaching. Everyone stay calm and stay at your stations." The ships came closer. Daniel could see them through the main window now. They were unlike anything humanity had ever built. They were long and curved, with smooth hulls that seemed to glow with inner light. Each ship was at least twice the size of the Bright Horizon. A message came through the communication system. It was in a language Daniel did not understand. The sounds were harsh and clicking, like insects talking to each other. "Run it through the translation computer," Daniel ordered. His communication officer, a man named Ben Torres, worked quickly at his station. The computer tried to make sense of the alien language. After a few minutes, it produced a rough translation. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered the territory of the Kethvari Collective, a client state of the Galactic Sovereignty. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in destruction." Daniel felt his stomach drop. Aliens. Real aliens. And they did not sound friendly. "What do we do, Captain?" Amy asked. Daniel thought about his options. He could run, but those alien ships looked fast. He could fight, but the Bright Horizon had no weapons. He could surrender and hope for the best. He chose to surrender. "Power down the engines," he said quietly, "and send a message to Earth. Tell them what is happening. Tell them everything." Ben sent the message. Daniel did not know if it would reach Earth in time. He did not know if it would matter. The alien ships surrounded the Bright Horizon. A beam of light shot out from the largest ship and locked onto them. Daniel felt the ship shudder as they were pulled toward the alien vessel. "Everyone stay calm," he said again, though his own heart was beating fast. The aliens boarded his ship 1 hour later. They were reptilian creatures, standing on 2 legs like humans but covered in green scales. They had yellow eyes with vertical pupils and mouths full of small, sharp teeth. They wore armor that looked like it was made from some kind of metal Daniel did not recognize. The leader of the boarding party pointed a weapon at Daniel. It spoke in that clicking language, and a device on its chest translated the words into English. "You are the commander of this vessel? I am Captain Daniel Price of the cargo ship Bright Horizon. We are peaceful traders. We mean no harm." The alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "All primitive species say the same thing. You will come with us. The sovereignty will decide what to do with you." Daniel and his 32 crew members were taken from their ship. They were put in a holding cell on the alien vessel. The cell was clean but bare, with hard floors and no furniture. A force field covered the entrance instead of bars. For 3 days, they traveled through space. Daniel tried to talk to the guards, but they ignored him. He tried to comfort his crew, but there was little he could say. They were prisoners of an alien empire they had not known existed. On the fourth day, they arrived at a massive space station. It was larger than any structure humanity had ever built, a great wheel spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Daniel could see hundreds of ships docked around it. Ships of all shapes and sizes. The prisoners were taken to a room where a single alien waited for them. This one was different from the Kethvari. It was tall and thin, with skin like blue glass and eyes that seemed to contain galaxies. It wore robes of silver and gold. "I am Ambassador Crixton," it said through a translation device. "You have been captured in sovereignty space. You will answer my questions." Daniel stepped forward. "I am Captain Daniel Price. We did not know we were in your territory. We are explorers and traders from a planet called Earth." The ambassador studied him with those strange eyes. "Earth, we have no record of this world. How long has your species traveled among the stars?" "About 300 years, Daniel said. The ambassador made a gesture that might have meant surprise. "Only 300 years? And yet you have built ships capable of faster-than-light travel. Interesting." The questioning continued for hours. The ambassador wanted to know everything about humanity. How many people lived on Earth? How many colonies did they have? What weapons did they possess? What was their government like? Daniel answered as honestly as he could. He saw no reason to lie. He also saw no reason to tell them about Earth's military. He spoke only of the civilian population and the peaceful nature of human exploration. When the questioning was over, the ambassador left without saying what would happen to them. Daniel and his crew were returned to their cell. Back on Earth, the message from the Bright Horizon had arrived. Lavra Bennett was an intelligence officer working in the headquarters of the United Earth Defense Force. She was a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. When the message came through, she was the first to see it. She read it 3 times to make sure she understood. Aliens, a galactic empire, a captured human ship. She ran to the office of Fleet. Admiral Nathan Cole. Admiral Cole was a tall man in his 60s with a shaved head and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. He had fought in the Belt Wars decades ago and had commanded the Defense Force for 15 years. He was not a man who scared easily, but when Lavra showed him the message, his face went pale. "Get me the United Earth Council," he said. Now, within hours, the leaders of humanity knew the truth. They were not alone in the universe. And the universe was not friendly. Admiral Cole stood before the council and spoke in a voice that was calm but serious. "We have always prepared for this possibility. Our fleet is small, but it is ready. We must find out more about this galactic sovereignty. We must learn their strengths and their weaknesses. And we must bring our people home." The council voted unanimously to send the Second Fleet to investigate. 12 warships under the command of Admiral Cole himself would travel to the coordinates in Captain Price's message. As the meeting ended, Cole turned to Lavra Bennett. "We are about to meet our neighbors," he said. "I have a feeling they are not going to be happy to meet us." He was right. High Arbiter Yelman sat on his throne in the great council chamber of Ethner Prime. He was an insectoid creature, tall and thin, with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see in every direction at once. He had ruled the galactic sovereignty for 300 years, and in all that time, nothing had truly surprised him. Until now, Ambassador Crixton stood before him, delivering his report about the captured humans. The High Arbiter listened carefully, his mandibles clicking softly as he processed the information. "You say these creatures have achieved faster-than-light travel in only 300 years?" Yelman asked. "Yes, High Arbiter. They are a young species, but they are clever. Their technology is crude compared to ours, but it works. They have colonized 17 worlds. 17 worlds in 300 years. Yelmon made a sound of amusement. The Kethvari took 6,000 years to colonize their first 3 worlds. These humans are ambitious. He thought for a moment. The sovereignty had encountered many species over the millennia. Most were primitive, barely able to leave their home planets. They were easily conquered and put to work as laborers or servants. Some were more advanced and required a show of force before they submitted. A few had tried to resist, but none had succeeded. Send a reconnaissance fleet to their space, Yalman ordered. 50 warships should be enough. Admiral Thorin will command. He will assess these humans and determine if they have any value to the sovereignty. And if they resist, High Arbiter, then Admiral Thorin will teach them the cost of resistance. 2 weeks later, Admiral Thorin's fleet arrived at the human colony world of New Brisbane. It was a beautiful planet, covered in green forests and blue oceans. 8 million humans lived there, working in cities and farms across the surface. Thorin was a veteran officer of the Vethkai species. He was shorter than most aliens, with thick gray skin and small dark eyes. He had conquered 11 worlds for the sovereignty and had never lost a battle. He expected this mission to be easy. He broadcast the standard submission demands in multiple frequencies. The message was simple: surrender now, or face destruction. The response came from Colonial Governor Patricia Moore. She was a woman in her 50s with silver hair and a calm voice. She had served in the Earth military before becoming governor, and she did not scare easily. This is Governor Patricia Moore of New Brisbane Colony. We do not recognize your authority over our world. We request a diplomatic meeting to discuss our relationship peacefully. Thorin stared at the screen in surprise. No species had ever responded to submission demands with a request for diplomacy. They usually either surrendered immediately or began firing weapons in panic. These humans are strange, said his tactical officer, a young Kethvari named Rixton. They do not seem afraid. They will learn to be afraid, Thorin said. He ordered his fleet to destroy an uninhabited moon orbiting New Brisbane. It was a standard demonstration of power. Sovereignty warships fired their weapons, and the moon shattered into millions of pieces. The debris spread across the sky like a new ring around the planet. Thorin broadcast another message. That was a demonstration. Your planet could suffer the same fate. Surrender now. Governor Moore's response was calm. We have evacuated our civilians to underground shelters. Our defense grid is active. We will not surrender, but we remain open to peaceful negotiation. Thorin felt something he had not felt in many years: frustration. These humans were not following the script. They were supposed to surrender or run or panic. Instead, they were preparing to fight. Destroy their defense grid, he ordered. Show them that resistance is useless. His fleet moved into orbit around New Brisbane. The defense platforms on the planet's surface opened fire. The first thing Thorin noticed was that the human weapons were not very powerful. They were simple kinetic cannons and missile launchers, the kind of technology the sovereignty had used thousands of years ago. His ships could easily withstand such attacks. The second thing he noticed was that the weapons were very accurate. Every missile adjusted its course in flight. Every cannon round changed direction at the last moment to hit weak points in his ship's armor. It was as if the weapons could think, could see, could learn. What is happening? Thorin demanded. The human weapons appear to be guided by some kind of advanced targeting system, Rixton reported. They are adapting to our evasive maneuvers. They are anticipating our movements. 3 sovereignty vessels took serious damage. Fires burned in their hulls. Crew members died at their stations. Thorin had expected to brush aside the human defenses like insects. Instead, he was losing ships. "Pull back," he ordered. "All ships, pull back to a safe distance." The fleet retreated. Thurin stood on his bridge, staring at the damage reports. 3 ships damaged, 47 crew dead. And he had achieved nothing. He opened a secure channel to Ethna Prime and sent a message to High Arbiter Yelman. The message said that the humans were more dangerous than expected. Their weapons were primitive, but their tactics were unlike anything the Sovereignty had encountered. He recommended a larger fleet for the conquest. On Earth, Admiral Nathan Cole received the combat data from New Brisbane. Laura Bennett stood beside him as he studied the reports. "Governor Moore did well," Cole said. "She bought us time. How much time do we have?" Laura asked. "Not much. They will be back, and they will bring more ships. We need to be ready." Cole turned to his chief strategist, Commander Kevin Walsh. Walsh was a thin man with glasses and a mind that worked faster than most computers. He had spent his career studying warfare, looking for patterns and weaknesses. "What do you think, Kevin?" Cole asked. Walsh studied the data carefully. "Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their shields are stronger. In a straight fight, we would lose." "Then we will not fight a straight fight," Cole said. Walsh smiled. "Exactly what I was thinking, sir. The Sovereignty has been fighting the same way for thousands of years. They expect their enemies to line up and exchange fire. They expect surrender or chaos. They do not expect creativity." "And we are very creative," Laura said. Cole nodded. "We have 18 warships. They are not enough to win a conventional war, but they might be enough to make the Sovereignty think twice about attacking us." He began giving orders. The Earth Defense Force would prepare for war. Not a war of conquest, but a war of survival. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier would be ready when the Sovereignty returned. On New Brisbane, Governor Patricia Moore looked up at the sky. The enemy fleet had retreated, but she knew they would be back. She had bought humanity some time, but she did not know how much. Her communication officer, a young man named Tyler Grant, approached her. "Governor, we have a message from Earth. Admiral Cole says help is coming." Moore smiled, but there was no joy in it. "Tell the Admiral that we will be ready. Whatever happens, we will not surrender." In her cell on the Sovereignty space station, Captain Daniel Price had no idea what was happening. He and his crew were still prisoners, waiting to learn their fate. They did not know that their capture had started a chain of events that would change the galaxy forever. All Daniel knew was that somewhere out there, Earth was preparing for war. He hoped they would be ready. He hoped he would live to see his home again. He sat in the corner of the cell and thought about his daughter back on Earth. She was 20 years old now, working as an engineer in the Mars shipyards. He had promised to be home for her birthday. That birthday had passed 2 weeks ago. "Captain," said Amy Collins, sitting beside him, "do you think they will come for us?" Daniel looked at his navigator. She was young, barely 30, with a whole life ahead of her. He did not want to give her false hope, but he could not give her despair either. "I know they will," he said. "Humanity does not leave its people behind. They will come for us, no matter what it takes." He believed it. He had to believe it, because the alternative was too terrible to consider. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, the fleets were gathering. The Sovereignty was preparing its largest armada in a century, and humanity was preparing something the galaxy had never seen before. The war was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the first battle at New Brisbane. In that time, the Galactic Sovereignty had assembled the largest conquest fleet in living memory. 300 warships gathered at the border of human space, commanded by Grand Admiral Sevenak. Sevenak was a legend among the Sovereignty's military. He had commanded 40 campaigns and won every single one. His species, the Verthai, were natural warriors with 4 arms and skin as tough as armor. He stood 8 feet tall and feared nothing in the galaxy. High Arbiter. Yelman had given him simple orders: crush the human resistance, capture their worlds, and bring their leaders to Ethna Prime in chains. These humans have embarrassed us, Yelman had said. They must be made an example. The other client races are watching. If we show weakness, they may think they can resist us too. Sevenek had nodded. He did not expect the campaign to last more than a few weeks. The humans had only 18 warships. He had 300. The mathematics were simple. He gathered his fleet at the entrance to the Kepler Passage, a narrow corridor of navigable space that led to Earth. Any invasion force had to pass through this corridor. It was the only way to reach the human homeworld. Quickly, the human fleet was waiting for them. Admiral Nathan Cole stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiant. It was an ugly ship by sovereignty standards. There were no elegant curves, no gleaming hulls. It was angular and brutal, covered in modular sections that looked like they had been bolted on as an afterthought. Laura Bennett stood beside him, monitoring the sensor displays. 300 ships, Admiral. Just as we predicted. Good, Cole said. Begin the operation. The Defiant moved forward, leading the 18 human warships toward the Sovereignty fleet. Sevenek watched them approach on his tactical display. He almost felt pity for these creatures. They were brave, he had to admit. Brave and foolish. All ships, prepare to engage, he ordered. We will destroy them quickly and continue to their homeworld. His tactical officer, a young Kethvari named Rixthin, who had transferred from Admiral Thurin's command, studied the sensor readings. Something was wrong. The human flagship was doing something strange. Grand Admiral, Rixthin said, the lead human vessel is changing. Changing? What do you mean? Rixthin pointed at the display. The Defiant was coming apart. The modular sections were separating from the main hull, but they were not drifting away. They were moving with purpose, reconfiguring themselves into new shapes. In 90 seconds, the Defiant transformed from one ship into 47 independent units. They spread out across space, connected by invisible beams of quantum entangled communication. Each unit had its own weapons, its own shields, its own artificial intelligence. The other human ships began doing the same thing. 18 vessels became over 500 separate combat units in less than 3 minutes. Rixthin stared at the display. His voice was barely a whisper. That cannot be a human warship. How is it real? Sevenek felt something he had not felt in decades: uncertainty. But he was a warrior. He had faced strange enemies before. All ships, open fire. Destroy those units. The Sovereignty fleet unleashed its weapons. Beams of energy and clouds of missiles filled the space between the two forces. The human units scattered like birds fleeing a predator, and then they attacked. The human units did not fight, like any enemy Sevenek had ever faced. They did not form lines. They did not stand and exchange fire. They swarmed. They darted between Sovereignty ships, firing from unexpected angles. They worked together in patterns so complex that Sevenek's tactical computers could not predict them. Worse, they learned. Every time a Sovereignty ship used a new defensive maneuver, the human units adapted within seconds. Every time a Sovereignty weapon found its mark, the human units adjusted their formations to prevent it from happening again. Commander Kevin Walsh sat in a small command center deep inside one of the Defiant's core units. He was connected to the fleet's central artificial intelligence, a system called Atlas. Atlas processed battlefield data from every human unit and coordinated their movements in real time. Focus fire on their command ships, Walsh ordered. Take out their communications. The human units obeyed. They concentrated their attacks on the largest sovereignty vessels, the ones that carried the fleet's commanders. One by one, those ships began to fall. Admiral Cole watched from his position at the rear of the formation. He was not directly controlling the battle. That was Atlas's job. His role was to make decisions that the AI could not make, decisions that required human judgment. "Status report," he said. "We have lost 12 units, Lover Bennett reported. The Sovereignty has lost 53 ships." Cole nodded. The exchange rate was favorable, but they could not sustain it forever. Human units were running out of ammunition. Power cores were overheating. Crew members were dying. "Begin Phase 2, he ordered. The human formation changed again. The scattered units reformed into larger clusters. These clusters began retreating, drawing the Sovereignty fleet deeper into the passage. 7X saw the retreat and felt hope. "They are running. Pursue them. Do not let them escape." His fleet surged forward, chasing the fleeing humans. They did not notice the mines until it was too late. The passage was filled with hidden weapons that the humans had placed over the past 6 months. They floated in the darkness, invisible to Sovereignty sensors. When the enemy fleet entered the minefield, the weapons-activated .30 Sovereignty ships were destroyed in the first wave of explosions. The fleet fell into chaos. Ships tried to evade, but the passage was narrow. They collided with each other. They crashed into asteroids. They flew directly into more mines. The human units stopped retreating. They turned and attacked again. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, Grand Admiral Sevenok had lost 87 ships. The humans had lost only 2 of their original 18 warships, though many of their smaller units had been destroyed. Sevenok stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by fires and broken equipment. Half his crew was dead. His flagship was barely functional. "Order the retreat," he said quietly. The remaining Sovereignty ships turned and fled. The humans did not pursue. They did not need to. They had made their point. On Ethna Prime, High Arbiter Yelman received the news in his throne room. He sat in silence for a long time, his compound eyes staring at nothing. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Sovereignty conquest fleet had been defeated. Not by a great empire, not by an ancient civilization, by a species that had been unknown 1 year ago. How is this possible? He asked no one in particular. His advisors had no answer. The Sovereignty had ruled the galaxy for millennia. They had crushed every enemy that dared to oppose them. And now they had been humiliated by primitives with crude ships and strange tactics. Yelman called an emergency session of the High Council. The 12 ruling species of the Sovereignty would meet to discuss this disaster. Something had to be done. On the Defiant, Admiral Cole watched the enemy fleet disappear into the distance. He was tired. His body ached. He had not slept in 3 days. Laura Bennett approached him. "We won, Admiral." "We survived," Cole corrected her. "That is not the same as winning. They will be back. And next time, they will bring even more ships." "What do we do then?" Cole looked at the stars through the bridge window. Somewhere out there, Captain Daniel Price and his crew were still prisoners. Somewhere out there, the Sovereignty was planning its revenge. "We prepare," he said. "We learn from this battle, and we prepare for the next one. And we find a way to end this war before it destroys us all." He paused, then added quietly, "We have shown them what we can do. Now we need to show them what we want. War is only useful if it leads to peace." The battle for humanity's survival was far from over. But for the first time, the galaxy knew that humans were not prey. They were predators, and predators do not surrender. The High Council chamber on Ethna Prime was the largest room in the galaxy. It had been built 10,000 years ago to hold representatives from 100 species. Now it held only 12, the ruling races of the galactic sovereignty. They sat in a circle around a holographic display showing the human fleet. The images played over and over again, showing the moment when the human ships transformed into hundreds of smaller units. The moment when the mighty Sovereignty Armada fell into chaos. High Arbiter Yelman watched the faces of the council members. He saw confusion. He saw anger. He saw something that had been absent from this chamber for centuries. Fear. How could this happen? Demanded Representative Verkath of the Verthai. His forearms waved in agitation. Grand Admiral Sevenak is the greatest warrior in our empire. He had 300 ships. These humans have no right to defeat us. And yet they did, said Representative Shelanai of the Shendai. She was a crystalline being, her body made of living minerals that caught the light as she moved. The question is not how it happened. The question is what we do now. Yalman raised one of his forearms for silence. The chamber fell quiet. I have asked Intelligence Director Malver to analyze the battle and explain what happened. Director, please share your findings. Malver stepped forward. Like all Shendai, he was made of crystal, but his body was darker than most, the color of deep space. He was the Empire's chief spy, and he had spent the past week studying every piece of information about humanity that the Sovereignty possessed. High Arbiter, Council members, I must begin with an uncomfortable truth. We underestimated the humans because their technology is inferior to ours. Their ships are slower. Their weapons are weaker. Their shields are thinner. By every measure we normally use, they should have been easy to conquer. He paused, letting his words sink in. But technology is only one part of warfare. The humans have something we did not expect. They have 10,000 years of experience killing each other. The council members stirred. Some made sounds of confusion. Others looked disgusted. Malver continued. Most species in the galaxy developed warfare as a response to external threats. They learned to fight because they encountered enemies among the stars. Humans learned to fight because they were their own worst enemies. For thousands of years, they waged wars against each other. They developed strategies and counter-strategies and counters to the counters. They refined the art of combat in ways we cannot imagine. He pointed at the holographic display. Their ships transform because they have studied how to defeat larger forces with smaller ones. Their weapons adapt because they have studied how to hit targets that do not want to be hit. Their formations shift because they have studied chaos and learned to use it as a weapon. Representative Crixvan of the Kethvari spoke up. You speak as if these humans are special. Many species have fought wars. We have fought wars. With respect, Representative, your species has fought 3 wars in 6,000 years. Humans have fought over 5,000 wars in the same period. They have written libraries full of books about warfare. They have built machines specifically designed to study and improve their killing abilities. They treat war as a science, an art, and a game, all at the same time. Malver brought up new images. They showed human history. Ancient battles fought with swords and spears, wars fought with guns and bombs, conflicts that killed millions of people. And there is something else, he said. Humans use artificial intelligence in ways we consider forbidden. After the machine rebellions of the Third Era, we banned autonomous weapons. We limited the role of thinking machines in warfare. Humans have no such restrictions. Their ships are guided by AI systems that think faster than any organic mind. Their weapons make decisions without waiting for orders. Their fleets operate as single organisms with millions of neurons. The council chamber was silent. Even Verkath, who had demanded answers just moments ago, had nothing to say. High Arbiter Yelman finally spoke. Director Malver, you have explained why we lost. Now tell us how we win. Malver hesitated. High Arbiter, victory is possible, but the cost would be significant. Explain. To defeat the humans, we would need to mobilize the entire military power of the sovereignty. Every warship, every soldier, every resource. We would need to fight a total war against a species that has spent its entire existence preparing for exactly that kind of conflict. He brought up projections on the display. Numbers and estimates filled the chamber. The war would last decades. Casualties would be in the billions. We would win eventually because we have more resources and more ships. But by the time we won, our empire would be weakened. Other client races might see our struggle and think they could resist us too. The victory would be Pyrrhic at best. Representative Shell and I leaned forward. You were saying that conquering the humans would destroy us. I am saying it would cost more than it is worth. The council erupted in argument. Some representatives demanded immediate attack. Others called for negotiation. A few suggested simply quarantining human space and pretending the species did not exist. Yellman let them argue. He was older than anyone else in the chamber. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had learned that the loudest voices were rarely the wisest thought after an hour. He raised his arm again for silence. We will take no action today. I want more information. I want to understand these humans better before we decide their fate. He turned to Malver. Send agents to human space. Learn their weaknesses. Find out what they want. And find out if there is any way to end this conflict without destroying ourselves in the process. As the council members filed out of the chamber, a message arrived from the border of human space. A human diplomatic vessel had appeared at the edge of sovereignty territory. It was broadcasting a message on all frequencies. The message was simple. Humanity wished to talk. On the diplomatic vessel, Ambassador Gregory Palmer waited patiently for a response. He was a man in his 60s with gray hair and a calm face that revealed nothing of his thoughts. He had spent 40 years as a diplomat, negotiating treaties and resolving conflicts across human space. This was the most important mission of his life. Do you think they will respond? Asked his aide, a young woman named Sarah Nguyen. They will respond, Palmer said. The question is whether they will respond with words or with weapons. He looked out the window at the vastness of space. Somewhere out there, an empire spanning 40,000 star systems was deciding whether to destroy humanity or talk to them. The fate of billions of people rested on what happened in the next few days. Palmer had prepared his entire life for this moment. He had studied alien cultures that humans had never met, based on theoretical models and science fiction stories. He had practiced negotiations with artificial intelligences that pretended to be hostile aliens. He had memorized every piece of information that Earth's intelligence agencies had gathered about the sovereignty, but preparation could only take him so far. In the end, diplomacy was about understanding what the other side wanted and finding a way to give it to them without losing what you valued most. He did not know what the sovereignty wanted. He did not know if they were capable of seeing humans as anything other than prey. But he knew that he had to try, because the alternative was a war that would kill billions of people on both sides. The communication system beeped. A message was coming through. Sarah looked at the display. Ambassador, we have a response. They want to meet. Palmer allowed himself a small smile. It was not victory. It was not even hope. But it was a beginning. Tell them we accept, he said. And tell Admiral Cole that the talking is about to start. The shooting can wait. Back on Earth, Admiral Cole received the message. He turned to Lara Bennett, who had been at his side through every moment of this crisis. The ambassador is meeting with them, Cole said. If he succeeds, we might survive this. And if he fails? Cole looked at the reports on his desk. Battle plans. Casualty estimates. Lists of ships and weapons and soldiers. If he fails, we fight. And we keep fighting until we win or we die. There is no third option. Lara nodded. She understood. Humanity had spent its entire existence fighting for survival. They had fought ice ages and plagues and wars that threatened to destroy everything. They'd always survived. This was just one more fight. One more enemy. One more challenge to overcome. And humanity did not lose. The neutral station floated in the darkness between empires. It was an ancient structure, built long before the sovereignty existed, meant as a meeting place for species that did not trust each other. Ambassador Gregory Palmer thought it was appropriate for this occasion. He walked into the main chamber with only Sarah and Ewan at his side. High Arbiter Yelman was waiting for him, surrounded by guards and advisors. The insectoid ruler of 40,000 star systems stood 8 feet tall, his compound eyes studying the human who dared to approach him as an equal. "You are Ambassador Palmer," Yelman said through his translation device. "I have read reports about you. They say you are clever and patient. I hope they are correct. This meeting will require both." Palmer bowed his head slightly in acknowledgement. "High Arbiter, I am honored that you agreed to meet with me. I believe there is much we can offer each other." "Offer?" Yelman made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "You are the leader of a species that defeated my fleet. You have nothing to offer. You are here to beg for mercy." Palmer smiled. It was a calm smile, the kind that revealed nothing. "With respect, High Arbiter, if we wanted mercy, we would not have fought your fleet. We fought because we wanted to be taken seriously. Now that you take us seriously, we can talk." Yelman was silent for a long moment. His advisors shifted nervously. No species had ever spoken to the High Arbiter with such confidence. Finally, Yelman gestured for his guards to step back. "Very well, Ambassador. Let us talk. Tell me what humanity wants." Palmer began to explain. Humanity did not want war. They did not want conquest. They wanted to exist on their own terms, to trade and explore and grow without interference. They wanted to be partners with the sovereignty, not subjects. "You ask for things no client race has ever received," Yelman said. "The sovereignty does not have partners. We have rulers and servants. That is the way it has been for 10,000 years. Then perhaps it is time for something new." Palmer said. The negotiations continued for hours. Palmer was patient. He listened to Yelman's concerns. He acknowledged the sovereignty's power and history. He showed respect for their traditions while firmly refusing to accept subjugat ion. At one point, Yelman asked a question that had been on his mind since the battle in the Kepler Passage. "Why did your species develop such fearsome military capabilities if you did not intend to conquer? Your technology suggests defense, not offense. Your tactics are designed to defeat larger forces, not to build empire. Why?" Palmer was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke about human history, that he told Yelman about the wars humanity had fought against itself. The ancient conflicts over land and resources. The great wars of the 20th century that killed millions. The nuclear weapons that still existed, pointed at human cities, ready to destroy everything in minutes. "We built our military not to conquer the stars," Palmer said. "We built it because we learned long ago that the universe does not reward the unprepared. We have a saying, if you want peace, prepare for war." Yelman considered this. His species, the Yelkai, had been prey on their homeworld millions of years ago. They had evolved in fear, always watching for predators, always ready to run or fight. He understood what it meant to build strength from fear. "Your species is dangerous," he said finally. "You think differently than any race we have encountered. You treat war as a game, and you are very good at games. We are also very good at peace," Palmer said. "We have built civilizations that lasted for centuries. We have created art and music and science that we are proud of. War is something we do when we must. It is not something we love." The negotiations continued for 3 more days. Palmer barely slept. He argued and compromised and pushed back when necessary. Sarah Nguyen kept him supplied with coffee and information, tracking every detail of the complex talks. On the 4th day, they reached an agreement. Humanity would become an independent ally of the galactic sovereignty, not a client race. They would have their own territory, their own government, their own military. They would trade with the sovereignty on equal terms. They would share technology and knowledge when it benefited both sides. In exchange, humanity would help the sovereignty with a problem they had never admitted to anyone. Other species were growing restless. Client races across the empire were watching what the humans had done. They were wondering if they could do the same. The sovereignty needed to show that cooperation was possible. That strength did not have to mean subjugation. Human military advisors would quietly consult with sovereignty commanders. They would share their knowledge of unconventional warfare, of guerrilla tactics, and distributed command systems. They would help the sovereignty become stronger and more flexible. "You realize," Yelman said as they prepared to sign the treaty, "that you are teaching us how to defeat enemies like yourselves." Palmer nodded. "Yes, but we are also showing you that enemies can become friends. That is a lesson worth teaching." The treaty was signed. News of the agreement spread across human space and throughout the sovereignty. Many people were surprised. Some were angry, but most were relieved that the war had ended before it truly began. 1 month after the treaty was signed, the crew of the Bright Horizon was released. Captain Daniel Price walked off the transport ship at Mars Station and saw a crowd waiting for him. His crew was behind him, all 32 of them, thin and tired but alive. They had been prisoners for almost 2 years, but they had survived. In the crowd, he saw his daughter, Emma. She was 22 now, no longer the young girl he remembered. She pushed through the crowd and ran to him. Daniel caught her in his arms. He had no words. Neither did she. They stood there, holding each other, while the crowd cheered around them. Admiral Nathan Cole retired 2 years after the treaty was signed. He had done what he set out to do: protect humanity from an enemy that should have been able to destroy them. Now he wanted to make sure the next generation was ready for whatever came next. He became a teacher at the Naval Academy on Mars. Young officers learned from him the lessons that had saved humanity. Not just tactics and strategies, but the philosophy behind them. The understanding that war was a tool, not a goal. That victory meant nothing if it destroyed what you were fighting for. Governor Patricia Moore became the first human to serve on an interspecies diplomatic council. She worked with representatives from across the sovereignty, building relationships that would last for generations. Laura Bennett took over as head of intelligence. She spent her days monitoring the sovereignty and the other species of the galaxy, making sure humanity was never surprised again. Commander Kevin Walsh continued to develop new military technologies. His work with artificial intelligence advanced rapidly, creating systems that were smarter and faster than anything that had come before. And Ambassador Gregory Palmer returned to Earth. He was tired. He had given everything he had to the negotiations, but he knew that his work was just beginning. Peace was not something you achieved once. It was something you built every day, brick by brick, conversation by conversation. He sat in his garden one evening, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. Sarah Nguyen came to visit him, bringing news from the sovereignty and stories from the diplomatic corps. "They say you saved humanity," she told him. Palmer shook his head. "I did not save anyone. I just talked. The people who saved humanity were the soldiers who fought and the civilians who refused to surrender. All I did was give them a chance to stop fighting." That is not a small thing, Sarah said. Palmer looked up at the sky. The stars were beginning to appear, points of light that represented worlds and civilizations he would never see. Somewhere out there, the sovereignty was changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. No, he agreed. It is not a small thing, but it is only the beginning. The galaxy is vast and humanity is still young. We have so much more to learn, so much more to become. Sarah smiled. And so many more arguments to have. Palmer laughed. It was the first time he had laughed in months. Yes, many more arguments. But that is what diplomats are for. He stood up and walked inside. Tomorrow there would be more work to do. More treaties to negotiate. More relationships to build. The universe did not wait for anyone. But tonight, he would rest. Tonight, he would remember that humanity had faced the impossible and survived. They had looked at an empire of 40,000 star systems and said, "We will not bow." And the empire had listened. That was the human way. They did not conquer. They did not surrender. They adapted. They fought when necessary. And they found ways to turn enemies into friends. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it.